A friend of mine was mentioning how he's been feeling anger towards fundamentalists and just all types, Christian, Islamic, Buddhist, and just that extreme perspective that people have where they, put their dogma on others and so forth. And I was thinking about how there are ways in which we can become overwhelmed with anger, and it starts to affect our own lives, and it doesn't really change anything or improve anything on the planet. It just makes us feel less comfortable. So I had some ideas related to this, and one of the examples of a fundamentalist who has been in the news a lot lately is Christine O'Donnell, who is running for senator in Delaware. And I'm not sure of her current beliefs, but she has spoken on air about how she was opposed to masturbation because it was involving lust, and therefore it was bad. So apparently she doesn't believe that you can get off to love or something like that. And she also was asked if she would ever lie if she was, in an example, like hiding Anne Frank in her attic and the Nazis were at her door, and she said no, she wouldn't. She would trust that God would take care of it. And that kind of extremism is very representative of fundamentalist views on life that are very black and white. And I think they find comfort in the ideas of following a rule, following a list of rules, and being able to feel more secure in life because they are behaving well. Kind of like coming from an authoritarian family where your goodness is measured by following rules, and that you are an okay kid or okay person if you follow the rules that are expected of you. And that's, one way of doing religion. One way of looking at the fundamentalists that exist, because I think that ideally people who are on a spiritual path want to live in a more open-minded and kind of peaceful utopian world. And we have to let go of the idea that everyone out there in the world is going to be sane. We can't wait for that. If we put off our peace because we're waiting for other people to be clear, we're not going to be happy. We have to let go of that and let people just follow their own way and not get too wrapped up in it. I think it's important to be aware of people who are trying to be in positions of power, such as Christine O'Donnell, and make sure, that you don't accidentally vote for somebody that has a lot of rigid ideas. But for the most part, just not focusing on it is helpful. It's kind of like, as a metaphor, that you think of all the millions of videos on YouTube, and your impression of the world is very different based on what you're focusing upon. If you watch clips of guys getting kicked in the balls, and that's your main thing, then you get one impression of the world. And if you're watching videos of Eckhart Tolle and Pema Chodron and Deepak Chopra, then you get a very different view of the world. And that's the same with all the people in the world who are doing crazy things and trying to impose their belief system on others. They exist, but we don't have to give them a lot of energy. There is a concept in cognitive psychology that's really helpful, in which you look at how you may be causing yourself suffering by focusing on what should be, as opposed to seeing it as a preference. So you can look at these kinds of fundamentalist people and say, well, I would prefer that they're more reasonable, but there's no reason that they should be. They can be who they want to be. I don't have to partake in that. And we don't have to be friends with everyone. We can just focus on the kind of people that we want to have in our lives and set boundaries with the rest of them, and trust that with time they will learn that rigidity doesn't work. But it could be a multi-generational thing. I mean, it probably will be multi-generational. With each generation, there's more and more consciousness But again, we don't have to put off our own happiness until everybody is awake and free of dogma. Another idea that I was thinking about in terms of this process of fundamentalists creating anger in oneself is it can be used as a way of seeing if it's triggering to us because of anybody that's in our life, either in the present or the past, who is similar. Maybe not with religious dogma, but some other kind of rigidity or controlling behavior, and seeing if that is why the fundamentalists are making us upset, because they remind us of somebody that we have to set boundaries with in our personal lives or work life or whatever. And another way we can utilize anger, because it really, just creates more suffering for ourselves without changing things. If it's a situation like this, that's this kind of anger, we can see if we're triggered because there's some aspect of ourself that is being black and white, rigid, that kind of same energy that is found in fundamentalist thinking. We might be experiencing what Freud called reaction formation, which is where we project our own discomfort with some aspect of ourselves onto another person, and we put our own self-loathing or self-disgust on another person because we're not being truly who we want to be. So if there's anything that's triggering for us, we can see, is there some part of myself, maybe a less intense version, but some variation on that theme in which I am finding myself to be too fundamentalistic in my own thinking about this, that, or the other thing. And so when I come to peace with that within myself, I'll feel more peace with other people and how they're doing things. Now, there's a lot in the media that is the whole squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing, that it's just amazing now that, there's very little news per se, in terms of just the concept of news being the somewhat objective reporting of events. It's all commentary, and it is all about obnoxiousness getting attention. And with Christine O'Donnell, it is a good thing that people are becoming aware of what her whole vibe is about and how extreme she is and so forth. A lot of people have been, focused on her admission that she explored witchcraft or it was probably Wicca, and that's really no big deal. I think a lot of people that are spiritual seekers, they try different things, they find out different things, and this is, we're far past burning witches, people. This is not a big deal. In terms of the satanic altar that she saw on some date, that's kind of intense. And if exploitation of it helps less conservatives vote for her, then that's fine. But the main thing, I think, is her rigid adherence to this concept of thou shalt not lie, and you should never lust. You should never touch yourself because it's bad and lustful. That's just out of balance and silly. So, anyways, there's a lot of silliness in the media. That's what gets focused on, is extreme behavior. That's what gets attention. And that's why I think that Jon Stewart and the Daily Show people are doing that rally to restore sanity, because there is a lot of insanity in terms of this ongoing focus on extreme behavior. So I think it's a great idea, because all extremes are not the norm, and we shouldn't pretend or delude ourselves into believing that most people out there are crazy. Most people are just kind of doing their lives and dealing with their personal stuff and just kind of figuring things out on a day-to-day basis. So don't believe that all these Tea Party people and various fundamentalists of various religions are the norm. They're not. They're just the fringe.